Jason with the Trackside Experience here. We're out here in Las Vegas, Nevada, hanging out in quarantine, still bringing you the Trackside Experience. So we've had a lot of fun lately in the off season with the e-racing for the eNASCAR series, and we're going to talk a little bit about simulator racing. A couple moments where I have a great little guest hosting session with Garrett Smithley, the NASCAR Cup Series driver of the number 51. And formerly of the Zero in the Xfinity Series. He may pop in there a couple times throughout the year, we'll see. And we're going to see him in some trucks this year, so Garrett's going to give us a lot of good action once we get back on the track. Meanwhile, in the E-Series, he did give us a 5th in the first race and a 3rd place finish there just a week ago off there in Texas. I think they're headed to Bristol this weekend, so that'll be a little nuts. But everybody's been talking about these rigs that they're using and how Denny Hamlin has a bazillion-dollar rig and Clint Boyer's got this big cool rig. Well, Garrett is using a G27 wheel from Logitech, and I actually gave him that G27 a bunch of years ago. It's kind of cool to see that it's still working for him, and I myself had a couple backups. When you got a G27, they're kind of worth their weight in gold. I myself use a G29 now, and the Logitech wheel here's got a couple different little features set up basically for a PlayStation configuration, PS4, PS3, but it works. It is a little grindy, geary. You can feel the in-between sections. Maybe I got to tweak it still a little bit. Only been a week since I've had it out of the box, but the G25 was really what got me into the higher quality of wheel series, but they had just numerous different problems with the gear shifting and the clutching and the paddle, all sorts of things with those. I mean, you can just name it. People have a whole Christmas list of problems. So I thought I'd share some of the old cool stuff. This is a Momo wheel. I used to race this when I first, well, not when I first started simming, but when I started getting a little more serious about it. These real strong force feedback on them in a real rigid way. It's kind of strange, but a good button layout. Small, so it's kind of a Formula One style, pretty hip. And you can bang through the gears in an up down fashion. So that's kind of cool, like you get on a lot of open wheel cars in real life. But even before that, back in the late 90s, I was racing this Act Labs setup. This is an RS wheel. It has a giant serial port in the back that you plug in the connection down to your pedals. But this good old thing, pretty cool. Paddle shifters. Had a couple of different button layouts again, very similar to the Momo, even though it's more of like a toy. But people are still buying them. They're about 50 bucks on eBay. So kind of cool, kind of fun. So we got a couple more e-races coming up. I know we got the dirt guys getting on track now. We got some Indy action. Like Ron Capps was out there racing with Garrett, doing some just fun. You know, Ron jumping to the Indy cars. How cool is that? You got an HRA guy mixing it up. Notice the MotoGP guys. They're doing some action too. They got the motorcycles. They're doing it with the consoles there, but they're still having fun. So let's jump over to Garrett's interview, and well, I actually kind of have him guest hosting, kind of interviewing. It's all audio, so I'm going to be throwing up some great pictures of the interviews from the years past, and a lot of Garrett Smithley on time while you're listening. Thanks again. Welcome back to the Trackside Experience. I'm Jason Summerall, your host, and we have a special guest host here today, Garrett Smithley, driver formerly of the number nothing, but now of the number 51 for Ware Racing. Garrett, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been an eventful couple weeks. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, it's kind of a bummer that we have the free time to chat. Normally we'd be at the track, but filling it in fun with some of this iRacing and the eNASCAR. That seems like it's been a blast for everybody.
Yeah, it's been nice. It's been a really good way for everybody to kind of get away from all the craziness going on. So I think it's good for the fans. It's good for the people in the industry. There's a lot of unknowns, and it's just a really nice getaway for all of us, and just a way for us to have a little bit of fun and get back to a little bit of normalcy. It was great. I mean, the first event just went absolutely stellar, just all around. Not just for me winning the pole and leading laps and finishing 5th, but just, you know, overall the broadcast at Fox, everybody at NASCAR, everybody at iRacing, they've just worked so hard on this, and to see all the drivers do that and then get a little bit more serious about it. We saw a little bit cleaner race, and everybody was a little bit closer together, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah, we heard a little vocalization a little bit more in this race today.
Yeah, that's right, and that was fun. I think Radioactive this week is going to be interesting, but no, all in all, it's a great couple weeks, as much as good as it can be. and it's been a lot of fun for sure.
From the couch and the laptop perspective, and with you on the iPad, following you directly there on Twitch. Thanks again for streaming. That's a lot of fun. And it looked like all the people in the chat were having a great time too. So it's, it adds in so many different layers to these incredible new opportunities for sports in general. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
blown away.
It really does, and I know I saw something where NFL was going to stream some Madden games. I think NBA was doing some simulated games. So everybody's trying to figure out, the niche as far as what's going on. But the cool thing about racing is that yeah, you can go play Madden, but you're just hitting buttons. For iRacing, you're actually turning the wheel, you're hitting the pedals, you're shifting, you're doing all the same things that you're doing in the real car, and that kind of gives a unique perspective for motorsports and that whole
Well,
deal.
yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. You and I were chatting the other day, and you were telling me about some of your settings and the fact that you have a 16-to-1 ratio on the wheel there on the G27. But you were telling me about the force feedback. Did I hear you running it at 30%? Is that right? Like
Yeah,
30.8?
it's 30.8, between 31 and 30.8, just whatever kind of feels best. But yeah, I want the maximum amount of feel that I possibly can, and I get people get on my wheel on my I call it a sim. It's actually just a wheel on a desk with a desk chair, but people get on there and they say, man, like, how can you run this thing, because there's so much force feedback. And it's just the fact that, as a race car driver, you want as much feel as possible. You don't get the seat of the pants feel like you do in the real car. So I use the force feedback to kind of simulate that as much as I can.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. I started with the G27, or actually a Momo wheel originally, which
Yeah,
has
me too.
the classic wheel, but
That's
force
right.
feedback, or the throttle, I think was what got goofed up on mine. It was no longer staying at like 100%. So I'm doing like 97% throttle while trying to run at Daytona. You lose the pack and you're done. So
Yep.
that baby was gone. I heard there's a rebuild kit, but heck, for the money it costs for a kit and actually doing it, you can get a good wheel on eBay for maybe $150 these days. But
Yeah, for sure.
but really, the G27 I saw you're using still, and I know that's a great one. I switched to a Fanatic myself, or a Fanatec, however they call that, and I spent like $700 on the thing, and I was not happy at all with it. It was just always something quirky with it, so it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, and to kind of elaborate on that, I my roommate's actually got one, and it's interesting. I think he's got some club sport pedals, which is, again, I've never liked that feel. I never felt like I could really save the car as well as I can with the G27. I just don't feel like I have the feel, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because I haven't put a lot of time and effort into it. Maybe it's just the fact that I've run Logitech. I started with a G25 with Logitech after I got rid of my Momo. Actually, like you said, the pedal deal, plastic pedals just didn't really work out. But started with a G25 after that, and then just ran G27s. I also tried the G29 and didn't really like that one, so kept the G27. I have 3 G27s now because I feel like I'm stockpiling because they don't make them anymore, and I want to hang on
Right.
to them. But honestly, I see all these guys with these big rigs, and as much as those are cool, and I like getting in them, I don't see myself changing what I got going on because it's obviously working.
Sure, sure. It almost becomes like a video game concept when you're in the giant sims, though. It sillies it up a little bit. I mean, I know some guys are like, "Oh, it's got to be super intense and real," but if your mind is in where the screen is, it doesn't matter how big it is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And yeah, I just run one screen. I know a lot of guys run with the 3 screens. I just run one screen, to be honest. And I've tried the 3 screens, and I don't like it for some reason. And it's not as immersive. But when you're focused and you're looking at the screen, yes, you're looking at the computer screen, but like, you don't see anything else around you. All you see is that computer screen and that car in front of you, that virtual dash, and you're just trying to make as much lap time as possible. It's very much like the real racing, where it's very mental and you don't really think about it. You just kind of do it, just by feel and by instincts.
Well, yeah, and it's not like you're in an open wheel where you're turning your head, looking hard left and right, like on a road circuit per se. But even with the Hans device, I know when we were working at Petty, it was I'm taking people out for rides, and they want to give a high five. You barely get that right arm off the wheel to get over that way. got yourself wedged in there so tight at times. And so, let alone to have those two other screens on the side, what's the point? I mean, your peripheral maybe a little bit, but you don't have much of that in the first place in the car.
No, and to your point, on the G27, it comes with paddle shifters for when you're doing some road stuff and maybe some IndyCar stuff. I have the H pattern that I use for the stock cars, but there are paddles. But when I'm running the stock car, I use the paddle shifting on the steering wheel to look left and right, so I can look over to the right. The screen kind of digitally looks over, kind of like a virtual head, and then swivels back to the front, and that's how I check kind of what's around me. But I mean, again, you're so locked in that even in the real car, you have this big seat, you have the belts. It's not like you're checking your blind spot. It's like you're pretty much locked in, like you said. So I don't really think that it makes much of a difference.
Well, it's funny you brought up the G25. I actually used to run a G25. Totally forgot about it. For the short period I had it, had a warranty problem, sent it in, they sent me a 27. But since then, in September, when I moved into my new home here, I actually picked up a G29, and I have yet to unpack it. Or let me rephrase that. I've yet to find it amongst all my Rubbermaid bins in the garage. They're all identical, and I didn't label it. I found the box. It says G29 Logitech. I said, oh my gosh, there it is. I pick it up, and it weighs like 2 pounds. I'm thinking, oh, that's not it. So I'm going to get back on track with you. We'll turn some laps. I'll send you an invite to our league. We'll have some fun. Let's
Sounds
talk.
good. You have to tell me how you like that G29, because I only used it a very very short amount of time. So you have to tell me what you think.
Logitech comped me on it too, so I want to make sure I give them a good, proper review, but I don't want to BS it, so I definitely will give you my honest opinion.
For sure.
So let's talk about a little bit about sponsorship here on racing in the real life and the e-racing. You and I were talking a couple weeks ago about promotional opportunities for smaller businesses that want to kick around $10,000 to $40,000 and do some marketing during this chaos that we're in right now due to this horrible sickness. And we've got the off time, and companies still need to market and to get it onto your car. I mean, geez, go ahead and share people with what you were telling me about that.
Yeah, it's a unique opportunity, and right now I don't think that we necessarily know the whole scope of things, and this is a whole nother realm for us, right? So we're now doing full on esports with NASCAR and putting on live television. Last week we broke a record for the most viewed, most watched live esports event in history. And now that we were on, now I did hear that there were some markets that it was only on Fox Sports and wasn't on the Fox network. But for the most part, I think it was on Fox network and simulcasted on Fox Sports 1, and I think streamed digitally. So I'm really, really eager to see what the numbers are and the viewership. And I know it's different times right now. There's not a whole lot going on, but at the same time, to have that kind of viewership, I think I read somewhere where 200,000 plus people tuned into that broadcast that had never watched a NASCAR race, and that's
Wow.
so big for the sport. So I think it's interesting to see everything grow. And when you look at being the number one thing on TV, sporting event, or I think probably really anything, I think it's a huge opportunity for sponsors. And for me, I race for Ware Racing, so we're a smaller team in the Cup Series. We don't obviously don't have the budget that some of those big teams have, and so we're just kind of riding around, doing the best we can for our sponsors, doing a lot of B2B stuff. We don't really sell the TV stuff as much as some of those big guys can. Well, now we are those big guys as far as the iRacing stuff goes. We've run up front, we've led laps. I don't know if we actually got to lead lap this time, but we've been up front for both races and had a lot of TV time. And when you look at 900,000 people watching, when you look at possibly maybe even more than that this time watching, that's an opportunity. And what we're trying to do is just kind of package something where, hey, we can sell the TV time on these e-races, but then once we get back real racing, you pick a race and we'll go do a real race, albeit we're
Sure,
not
their
going to be
hometown or
competing for
something.
wins. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That's
We're not
great.
going to be competing for wins, but we're going to have VIP pit passes, and we're going to have the whole hospitality and all the things that Rick Ware Racing is so good at, and kind of package that in together. And it's a unique opportunity right now.
Well, I tell you, I was watching the last couple laps. Between you, Timmy, and William Byron, you guys are all pretty competitive up there. But speaking of the sponsors, Credit One Bank jumping in on this for already. And so when they're saying work from home, we know we've got the marketing guys from these major corporations sitting there waiting to help out. So, yeah, I'm going to send some more emails on your behalf as well, because yeah, this is getting huge. But I
Well,
did get excited. I wanted to mention that I noticed MotoGP had jumped in too. They're doing the PlayStation stuff, but I thought that was pretty cool to see those guys even partaking, and you helping out with in the Indie series. And that was cool. Ron Capps jumping in there. That's like a celebrity event.
yeah, that's it's really cool. In fact, after we get done with this podcast, I'm probably gonna go practice because we got the Indy race at I guess it's the Bombarito Throwback 500, the Elite Racing League at Gateway. So I don't really have any experience in open wheel stuff, and even on iRacing, I very limited. So, but it is pretty cool. They have the windscreen on there, so that's pretty cool. But to see all these guys, all these professional drivers hopping in and doing this stuff, like Connor Daly's been streaming. He actually came onto my stream and hung out for a little bit. And then, like you said, Ron Capps, and I know Alexander Rossi was in there the other day, and some of these guys that I'm racing with. It's like, man, these are big time IndyCar guys
Dude,
and
it's
NHRA
amazing, isn't
guys,
it?
and it's insane to see what the community is, and that's why iRacing is capitalizing on this, and I mean, this is their stage now. I mean, it's really cool, and to be a member of iRacing since 2009, it's really cool to see how much it's grown. And I actually tried to do some of this esports stuff back in 2013 and 14 with my real world sponsors when I was just running ARCA stuff and getting into truck stuff. I was actually sponsoring my now photographer Danny Hansen with H Media in the iRacing Pro Series. He was one of the drivers there, and I tried to kind of be on the leading edge. I was just a little bit too early for it, but it's cool to see all my ideas that I had back then kind of come into fruition, and now we're actually selling sponsors, big sponsors on the iRacing stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's insane how it's evolved. I mean, it's almost like it was destined for this though. And what's unique is how it's going to revolutionize the industry for so many different forget racing, but overall all this work from home kind of stuff. And it's a whole different universe due to this virus. And I'm just so glad to have people like yourself and all those cool other personalities jumping in, and Junior jumping into the NASCAR stuff again. It's just so rewarding from a fan perspective. I appreciate it a lot, and when I was watching your stream today on Twitch, and by the way, guys, yeah, you got to hit twitch.tv/Garrett Smithley, and you'll subscribe there to his channel and follow him. A lot of fun. I mean, these guys are sitting there. You can see them sweating behind the wheels. You've got to do it. But it's free too, so well worth it. But bigger yet, though, I was noticing people from Germany and France and from India all commenting, and I'm thinking, my goodness, this really is taking it to the global level because nobody's got anything to watch anywhere.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's cool. Like, I was watching my stream, like you said, there's people from all over the place, Berlin and Australia, and like all across the world on my stream today. So it's a really cool experience for me to be able to experience and opportunity to be able to interact with fans like that. And back when I did a very small amount of streaming. I believe it was like 2017, and I was streaming some of the PUBG stuff, some of the battle royale when it got really popular, and doing a little bit of iRacing. But every single week it seemed like when I was streaming, and I wasn't streaming every week, but I was streaming every other week, every so often, just when I had the time. I had, for the most part, younger fans coming in to the racetrack and doing autograph sessions with me, and coming to autograph sessions and saying, "Hey, I love watching your streams. Keep it up." And it was kind of like a light bulb. I was like, "Wow, like these are young kids that are watching my stream and now coming to the racetrack to see the races. Maybe there's something there." And
Yeah, you lit the fuse.
yeah, and now the past week now, I mean, it's completely blown up. We had like 4 something thousand followers in the first stream. I think it got a little bit of saturation because I think a lot of other drivers kind of hopped on that stream bandwagon to kind of
Sure, sure.
capitalize on it. But still, our stream was one of the top ones on iRacing. I think we had over 1,000 for the most part, sometimes 2,000 up there, and the interaction is just so cool. And
You guys
it's
had
cool to see.
a bigger field this week, didn't you?
I think it, yeah, I want to say we had
Yeah, it looked like you
35 or
picked up a couple
36.
drivers.
Yeah, there's definitely more cup drivers involved for sure. I think the only one, I think Kevin Harvick and Truex Jr., Cole Custer, there was just a handful of guys that weren't involved, but they had the last chance race, which I think they were vying for 4 spots. There was like 35 people in the last chance race, and that was absolutely insane. So it's cool to see all these real world drivers that are so excited to come out here and do this stuff. I mean, getting to run with Hall of Famer Bobby Labonte, getting to run with Dale Jr., I'm sure future Hall of Famer, and some of those guys, and then obviously the big guys, Jimmy Johnson and Kyle Busch, and Kurt Busch, that are out here just having fun and learning. Obviously they just don't have a whole lot of experience with iRacing, but they do the best they can. I think Kyle was in top 10 for a little bit.
Yeah, I still saw a lot of four tire, and when you could have just taken a splash of fuel, those kind of things going on. So there's definitely room for improvement across the board on some of those folks, but they're having fun. I mean, those smiles have been just so genuine.
Well, it's cool to see them take it seriously and really get in there. I saw, Clint Boyer was a huge. I don't know how he finished. I didn't really see much of him today, but as far as practice goes, he was one of those guys that improved a ton to run with him. And even Kyle Busch, we ran with Kyle Busch side by side in some of the practice races. So cool to see all these guys really taking it pretty seriously. But at the same time, not losing sight of the fact that we are still playing iRacing. It is a simulation, and we're just out here having fun.
And speaking of, let's talk about some real world racing here. We don't obviously have any ETA of where we'll be next, anything like that. But I personally want to try to help you get some more sponsorship on the race car. But what things do you have to suggest? Because I know you've always been one that's kind of a self promoter. What do you have to say to the younger guys that are just coming into, let's say legends and things like that, to start getting on the track and they're just trying to cut their teeth in the industry? What can help them try to get some sponsorship?
Yeah, man, that's so tough. That's the number one question. That's the toughest thing. The biggest thing getting into it, you want to keep, first of all, social media can be like the absolute worst enemy if you do it wrong, especially when you're young. So when I first started racing, I always, even at 15, when I first got a Facebook, 15, 16, back in the MySpace days, always making sure that you weren't doing anything crazy on social media, because that stuff comes back to bite people. Even now, big corporations are looking into social media to kind of do interviews. But so that's important. Just promoting yourself, taking many pictures as possible, and learning business. It is so important to learn business in our industry now. I feel like more of a business guy and a marketing guy more than I am a race car driver, because let's face it, every week when we go to the racetrack, we have 2 hours, less than 2 hours of practice. We have 1 lap of qualifying, and we have anywhere from say 2.5 to a 4-hour race. And
Right.
if you calculate all that time that you spend at the racetrack as comparing to all the time that you spend back home, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, calling, trying to do business development, trying to keep your current sponsors happy and doing all that stuff, the ratio is way more lean towards the business side. So really, really want to get a good business sense. If you're in school, kind of take business classes, marketing classes, anything that kind of helps you out with that communication, and just trying to figure out how you can use your own platform as a race car driver to help your sponsors out and to make it a success. Because at the end of the day, if you don't do that and you don't give them a return and you're not in it for their best interest, then it's never going to work long term. And it's all about relationships.
Yeah, you got to establish that integrity and that foundation, sure. And you definitely don't want anything going back to bite you in the butt down the road either. So let me ask you a question. You said something on your live stream today. You were talking about the SpaceX, and you got to see the launch down there in Daytona, right?
Yes.
How
Yep.
cool was that?
It was so cool. I, for some reason, have always had a fascination for space. I love everything about it. As soon as I have the means and there's private space travel, which I think is going to be inevitable at some point, I really, really, really want to go to space. That's one of my main goals in life is to make it to space. I really, really want to walk on the moon. I think that's a little bit more far fetched, but at the, at least
I
on the
don't know.
surface.
Elon's talking multiple launches per
Well,
day.
that's true. Maybe I can hitch a ride, but no, at the very least, I want to go up in a rocket or a spaceship or whatever it is that we're launching up there and sending up there, and I want to go into space and I want to go into orbit and I want to float around. That's what I want to do. I want to see the world in a different way. I love it. I don't want to be an astronaut. I have no desire to work for NASA or SpaceX. I'm not near smart enough to do that. But for sure, I want to go to space at some point.
Well, hey, man, that's what the global space tourism is going to be all about, man. The original 2001 Space Odyssey, it was the Hilton in space.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
no,
that's
but
true.
I'm with you, man. I'll be sitting right next to you on that first ride. I'm with you.
Hey,
Uh,
maybe we can hitch a ride to Mars. I know he's looking for volunteers, right?
there you go, right? But I think
We
that,
could do some Mars rover racing. How's that sound?
oh my goodness, now you got it on. But they're also talking a one-way trip, though, too, right? I don't know about
Oh,
that.
that's true. That's true.
I got to
That's the
have some
kicker.
wine.
I'll say if somehow racing doesn't end up working out, then I'll probably go to Mars.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, brother. Well, thanks for joining us today. If you got anything else, please feel free. I just really want to thank you for the fun you're giving the fans, and me personally just enjoyed it. It's brought the neighborhood conversation into this because it's the only thing on TV. So I stand out taking the trash out. The neighbor's walking up. Hey, I saw this NASCAR e-racing thing. So it's touching people, man. That's pretty cool.
That's so cool. That's so cool to hear, and just really want to give a big shout out to iRacing. They've worked so hard to make sure that we had this platform to put it together. I mean, I'm sure that they've spent countless hours, and I think I read somewhere that it's only about a group of like 6 or 7 that are kind of organizing all this stuff with NASCAR and Fox. Obviously, the NASCAR kind of organizing it with iRacing and then Fox broadcasting it. It's cool to all see. And our sponsors, Victory Lane Quick Oil Change, hopped on board for this week for our third place finish. And Richmar Florist out in Allentown, Pennsylvania, they were on board for our fifth place finish. And hey, hopefully next week we'll get to the virtual. I don't know. I heard Bristol or Richmond or some. I don't really know which track is next, but whatever it is, I hope that we can get up there and maybe get a win.
Yeah, I've heard that same talk about Bristol. I don't know, man. I'm not too good at Bristol and iRacing myself.
I'm not, but hey, I'll say that I wasn't very good at Homestead, and that worked out for me. So maybe I'll surprise myself.
Yeah, really. Well, I remember you saying last week you were pretty good at Texas. You proved that today. It's kind
Yeah.
of a tight one there. I know that
Well,
that
and
pit strategy that you, whoo.
since you brought that up, just real quick before we go, this was the first time that iRacing. Well, I mean they rescanned Texas, and so I think this is the first kind of competitive race that iRacing's had at Texas. So it was interesting to see everybody. Even the iRacers. We haven't been on this track until this week, so it was interesting to see how
Yeah,
everybody
here's a
adapted. I think
curveball for you. Enjoy this fixed setup.
exactly, exactly. I think everybody adapted pretty good, so I think it was a good show, and excited to keep it on.
Well, it's cool. I didn't know you were on iRacing since 2009, but hit me up, send me a friend request, and I'll send you over an invite there as well to the league. And you folks, my league that we host is Higher Racing. It's open to everyone. Now, granted, we want to have you not taking people out, so hopefully you got your stuff together out there on the track. But we've had Noah Gregson racing with us, and we go green, and who's the one takes him out? Yours truly, right up his rear end. So
Oh boy.
I'll try not to do the same to you. Yeah. No, but it's fun stuff. Yeah, well, it's Phoenix. That stacks up with that old setup always in turn one. Oh, I love that. Love those races, man. Can't wait to do it with you and the fans, and we'll have some good times in the future. But Barry is going to be joining us in the next segment. Barry's got some cool military insight he wants to share with us. And I don't know if I've really mentioned it to you, Garrett, but Barry's a hardcore aviation photographer and racing photographer.
Oh, nice.
So,
two of my passions. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's well, with your father doing the fire and safety there and those big old beasts. He's in a C-130, right?
He's actually in a DC-10.
Oh, that's right. He's driving the jet.
Yep.
The jet. That's right.
Yep,
Crazy.
Yep. He flies it like a fighter jet for sure.
Yanking and banking. Alrighty, brother. Well, thanks again for joining us. That's Garrett Smithley, and be sure you cheer him on, follow him on Twitter and on everything else on the planet, and give him some kudos this season. We'll be watching him from the couch. I'm Jason Summer with the Trackside Experience, and we'll be seeing you at the track.